I stopped watching the news when Trump got elected last November. Just being angry doesn't change anything. The only thing that most people do that is in any way relevant a lot of the time is just to vote. There's a distortion of value in our society. Essentially, it's just like panacea for all social ills as if we stop small boats coming across the English Channel. That's simply not true. Art is a remedy, and people need to understand that.
Hello and welcome to Ways to Change the World. I'm Krishnan Guru-Murthy, and this is the podcast in which we talk to extraordinary people about the big ideas in their lives and the events that have helped shape them. My guest this week is the artist David Shrigley. Now, David is famous for his quick-witted drawings with clever words and his exercises or installations as well. He famously recently pulped thousands of used copies of the Da Vinci Code and turned them into new copies of 1984. And his latest work here in London is piles of old rope, which are on sale for £1 million. David Shrigley, welcome. Let's start by talking about rope. I mean, this looks like something out of 2001 Space Odyssey almost. Where did the idea come from?
Old rope, yeah. So we've got 10 tons of old rope, 4 piles like this. I guess the starting point was the aphorism, money for old rope. And this is a commercial gallery in the middle of Mayfair who have represented me for 30 years pretty much. So it's kind of how I make a living. You know, this is a shop essentially that sells my wares and other artists. So it's quite an important relationship. This, you know, the fact that I show with this gallery means that I don't have to have a job, basically, which is a good thing. So it's perhaps not coming from a starting point of a critique of the art market, which is, yeah, whilst it's difficult in some ways, it's a good thing for me and for the gallery that we can sell stuff. Whether we can sell this is quite another matter, but the context is kind of important. It would have a really different resonance if I put it in a public gallery or an art museum. So this is the middle of Mayfair, and it's where people will, you know, potentially buy a painting for £1 million, maybe. Not one of mine, but maybe somebody else's. So it is, I guess it's, I think a few of the works I've made over the years have started with an aphorism, with a metaphorical statement that I've taken literally. So it's, when it comes to a starting point, it's like, what happens if I do this? What happens if I make a literal embodiment of that aphorism, money for old rope? That being a statement that you might use to describe some service or goods that have no value, but yet you're still being remunerated for. So hence, I put the price of the work in the press release, which is £1 million, which is kind of a bit of a provocation or a joke, really. But one doesn't normally do that in a commercial gallery. So that's sort of part of the work, and here we are, and it's kind of unfolding. So this discussion maybe is sort of part of the work. It's part of the work in progress.
Do you think customers or clients might feel a little mocked?
I kind of hope so, in a way, because yeah, you need to have some fun in a gallery. I mean, it can be quite an austere environment, or quite kind of stuffy in some ways. So I think it's good to have some fun with that thing. It's very easy to provoke people about contemporary art. You know, the Carl Andre's bricks that were bought by the Tate many years ago is sort of a touchstone for that kind of outrage. And there's part of me that hopes that I might provoke the same outrage, because it's kind of stupid, because obviously as far as I'm concerned, because first of all, am I going to sell this for £1 million? It's possible, I suppose, but if I did, it wouldn't be the Tate Gallery that were buying it. It wouldn't be public money that was buying it. And also I'm very passionate about the value of art, about the art and the arts in general are a really important part of our society.
The greater value.
The greater
rather
value.
than the monetary value.
Rather than the monetary value. So that is part of the discussion, the price versus the value.
I mean, how have we got to a place where price is determined the way it is?
Well, money's very important, isn't it? Money makes the world go round. Money is a determiner of what kind of lives we live. And people are seemingly very willing to simply focus on the price of artworks rather than any other value that they might have. And the price is often, I don't know, it's just the way that a lot of people will interact with anything in the world. And it isn't very helpful sometimes.
What effect do you think the art market has had on how art is valued in the greater sense?
I don't think it's necessarily a good thing, but it does. You can have a debate about art. I mean, we're having a debate right now. You're here, which is great. Thank you for coming. So that's a good thing. It's good to talk about art. It's good to talk about culture. It's good to talk about the arts and the value of the arts as a whole. The art market, I think it often, from the point of view of an artist, of me, it's, money is a means to an end. Money, as I've said, is it's good to have money because it means I don't have to have a job. It's good to have money because you don't have to think about money, I suppose. And that, for me, the great privilege of my life is that I get to make art all day. It's not necessarily that the art that you make might have an inflated price or whatever, but it's great to avoid.
Do you have a sense of your art's own worth, not monetary, but
I guess
within art?
I probably don't, in the sense that you don't know yourself. You can't see yourself as other people see you, and you can't really see your work as other people see it. But you can, and people say to me sometimes, because I'm best known for making drawings and paintings, graphic art, which has a very modern, oblique sense of humour to it. People often respond really well to that, and they say, your work is really valuable to me. Those sentiments resonate with me, and thank you for making it. But my response to that is, thanks very much. I'm really happy that you think that. I'm humbled that you think that. But the truth is perhaps that I make the work for me. I think you have to make the work for yourself and say what you want to say, because that's healthy. Otherwise you can't please anybody else unless you entertain yourself somehow.
So when you create the work and the words, you're saying it to yourself first of all.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my work is a lot of my internal monologue, albeit this work is very atypical of what I do. As a statement, as an attitude, it's probably quite representative of my Dadaist ambitions, but physically it's quite, what people know me for is greetings cards that you buy in the greetings card shop and things that I post on social media, I suppose. But yeah, for me, making the work has a real value, and I still feel that is a privilege that I get to do it all day.
I mean, the work you're doing has changed over time, hasn't it? And the work you're doing in recent years, I suppose you might describe it as sort of high impact. It's got a sort of a stuntish quality sometimes, and it's not something people can pin on their walls. But actually, the stuff that people pin on their walls has daily impact on people's lives, doesn't it? I mean, do you think you can measure one against the other in terms of what has the greatest significance?
Perhaps. I'm sort of hesitant to acknowledge whatever impact I've had on anybody's life, really.
Because some people will look up, will wake up and look at one of your images every day in their room, or
Yeah, and that's, that is a beautiful thing, but it's somehow something I'm slightly shy of acknowledging. But again, I like the fact that I can make the work, and when the part of the joyful thing about what I do is that the context will always change. Because it is on a greetings card or a postcard, you're never in control of that context, and people will present it differently, and it will mean something different to everybody. Whereas perhaps if I only made this kind of work, which was very much installation based, which could only really exist in an art gallery or a museum, it would be very different. So in a way, I feel quite lucky about that, because people have tattoos of my work and stuff, which is another totally baffling context, which is really interesting. But again, it's just sort of, I arrived at that place by accident. So I like that. I like the possibility of the different context. But at the same time, when people say, "Oh, your work's changed my life," I kind of don't quite understand what they mean.
And do people still ask you to draw on them?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm quite an introverted person. I really struggle with people presenting their bare parts of their body to me, and giving me a sterile pen and asking me to draw an owl on their torso, which does happen. So yeah, it's funny, right? It's interesting, and maybe not that many artists experience that, but
it's quite a responsibility as well, isn't it?
It's a massive responsibility, also because I'm such a cacanda, and part of it, I'm sort of like, yeah, this is a pure gesture, but I can't. I'm also I struggle with the sight of blood. I'm a fainter when it comes to blood, so I can't do the needle thing, and that would be the ultimate. But I draw on them with the sterile pen, and then they immediately go next door to the tattoo parlor and have it done with over the same line. So there is a truth to that line, and it might not be a truth that you want to see.
How did you find your artistic voice as a young man? I mean, you don't come from a sort of an arty family, do you?
No, not really. I mean, I think my parents, my family were probably a bit baffled by my passion for wanting to be an artist. But in a way, that's quite good. My parents were very supportive of me, even though they would rather I'd have done something else, I guess. But yeah, always very supportive. So, but I came, I guess I've always just been interested in art ever since I can remember. And
did you study art as a child, or when you say you're interested in art?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at primary school, I was the best at drawing a T-Rex, in 1973 or when it was. And then fast forward to the end of the 1990s, when I graduated from Glasgow School of Art, I was probably almost the worst at life drawing, as we had to do it at Glasgow School of Art, which has a very proud history of figurative painting, figurative drawing. So I went on a journey, but I was always very passionate about it. I think I never really understood that one could actually have a career as an artist. Even when I was at art school, even post-art school, there just wasn't really a precedent for anybody doing that. I thought maybe I could design record covers or something, or be a cartoonist, but to actually be the kind of artist that I am now, sitting in a fancy art gallery by a really curious installation, I didn't really anticipate that at all. So I probably came to drawing actually as a result of trying to decide to have a career that I thought was tangible or realistic. But I was a bit of a failure as a cartoonist, because my cartoons are somewhat oblique,
But even going to Glasgow School of Art must have been quite a leap of imagination. I mean, how did you did you get yourself into the position where you were thinking, right, I'm going to go to art school for a start? You know, most kids, even most kids who are good at art, I think find it hard to make that step.
I think I had one really good teacher at school who taught me at O level and A level as it was then, who were like, yeah, you should go to art school. You should do, the path is usually you do a year of art foundation and then you do a degree in fine art. So he was very instrumental in me understanding what that possibility was. And I think if it wasn't for him, then I might not have followed this path. And I had, when I went to Art Foundation, which I did in Leicester where I grew up, again I had some good teachers there, one of whom had studied at Glasgow School of Art and said, you could actually go and study in Scotland if you wanted to at Glasgow School of Art, which wasn't something that many students at that time understood because the education system is different in Scotland. The degree system is different in that you don't do an art foundation course, you just do a degree, so you have to apply to second year. Anyway, the possibility of applying to Glasgow School of Art seemed incredibly exotic. And going to Glasgow at that time, it was, I grew up in the suburbs of Leicester, so Glasgow seemed very, very exciting. And I think I'd...
and it was, I mean, when were you there?
I went in 1988, so it was prior
yes.
to the city.
I went to the Glasgow School of Art show in 1988,
really?
Because I was living in Glasgow at the time.
Really?
And Glasgow was a really exciting city. It was the city of culture for Europe. So it must have felt like a big, exciting step.
Yeah, it was great. And, you know, the proportions of Glasgow are so different to, you know, cities in the provinces of England. The Victorian tenement architecture and downtown Glasgow is on a grid system, so it doubles in movies for Chicago and New York, you know, because of that. And yeah, Scottish culture is quite different. There's a very much an irony and a gallows humour that exists in the west of Scotland that doesn't really exist anywhere else in the UK. And I always loved that, and I always, you know, Glasgow has kind of become part of who I am, albeit I've escaped from the bad weather more recently.
How do you think we should encourage kids to think of art as a potential career? Or do you think we shouldn't because it's so rare?
Well, I think that any career, when you see a careers advisor, some of the things they caution you about is, well, this is very competitive, so don't do it. And he's like, well, you could go into a path that isn't competitive, you know, and see how you get on with data entry or being a carer or whatever. A lot of people can easily do without qualifications. That's not a good reason not to do something. You know, if you want to do it, if you like doing it, then you'll find a way to make money at it. You'll find a way to make a living at it. I mean, most people who are professional creatives have to be resourceful in what they do to pay the rent. But that's what you have to do. You have to be resourceful in life anyway. The world of work is changing rapidly. And so yeah, just do what you want to do to start with. But in answer to your question, I think the most important thing is valuing the arts in education when kids are at school, because, you know, it's that conversation around STEM, science, technology, engineering and maths, that there's no A in that. You know, there's a movement, which is something I've talked about in previous projects, where it should be STEAM or STEMmer or something, where the arts are really important in terms of the academic diet. So if you're only valuing STEM subjects, you're not teaching kids how to be creative, and to study a subject where they have true agency over what they do, rather than just processing information and figuring out how to do stuff in that way. Studying art is the only subject where you are the captain of the ship and you can go wherever you want. And that is in terms of being a useful employee, that can be applied to any career, and that's really useful. And you really only get that through studying art. And if you're not valuing art within school, it's, you know, you're not giving kids the educational diet that they need to thrive.
So it's not necessarily about teaching them to become artists.
No, but also, you know, you don't necessarily have to be a professional artist in order to practice art. You don't need to be a professional singer to sing, or a professional dancer to dance, or play the guitar, or whatever. It's something that can sustain you in your life. You need to have a creative outlet, whether it be music, whether it be visual art, whether it be, you know, restoring your vintage car, or whatever it is. People need that. It's a very important part of our well-being. And, you know, it's been very well documented that this is, you know, our well-being, which the arts can promote, are determiners of how functional, how successful a society is.
How important to you is physically creating art, given so much of creation now is digital?
I don't know. It's just, I mean, if it's good enough for David Hockney, it's good enough for me, you know, with the iPad. But I don't really do that myself. I think I like, part of what I do is a commitment to the line. And a digital line is always a provisional line. You can always go back, erase it, and do it again. Whereas I like the commitment to, you know, one line on a piece of paper. That's why I generally always draw in ink. I never draw in pencil. And I only draw it once as well. For me, that's sort of, it's a document of the moment, I suppose. And it's like, if you compare it to photography, when we were young, there weren't that many photographs of us, you know. So there aren't that many photographs of me when I was a kid, which it sort of is a shame sometimes when you're doing this, because you want that photograph of me making art when I was a kid, whereas, and you sort of had to commit, photography was kind of expensive, yeah, to make a photograph, whereas now, you know, the amount of photographs in the world doubles every day or something like that. So our lives are completely documented from the mid-noughties maybe, but prior to that, very sparsely. But also, the thing about that is, I used to make photographs in the 1990s as artwork. I'd document things that I made outside. And then once digital cameras arrived, somehow I stopped doing that, because the photograph as an object sort of ceased to exist. It wasn't, you know, film-based photography started to die out, and I stopped being interested in the object, or there was no object. So whilst I still take photographs, it is, you know, it's on my phone and it serves a different purpose. So as an artwork, it's a different thing, and I think that the material artwork, the thing in space that you can touch and enjoy, is somehow really important to me, because, you know, whether I like it or not, half of my life is digital. It's on social media, and you play with that, and it's a lot of fun. But I still love drawings and piles of rope.
And does making things physically make you happy in a way that, you know, designing something on a screen wouldn't?
Perhaps, but that's not to say I don't. You know, you make art with whatever means you've got at your disposal. If that's an iPad on the train, then great. But yeah, I think there's something very essential about making things, and there's particularly when you know, a lot of people really like working with clay, with ceramics. But I think it's a bit like gardening in a way. It's like you want to have your hands in the dirt. I think there's something in the clay that some minerals or fungi or something that just helps you. I don't know if it's the same with old rope, but probably the opposite.
But there's something about the process here, isn't there, as well? I mean, you know, because you could have said, well, money for old rope, ring a builder's merchant, bring in a pile of rope and do it in a day.
It's not that simple.
It's not that simple, is it?
as it turns out. No, you've got, myself and my very talented team made a lot of phone calls and Facebook messages to fishermen, to climbing centres, to the docks, to places that clean the ocean bed for the benefit of marine life. We found out a lot as a learning experience, which a lot of the time when you make very much ideas-based projects like this, you learn an awful lot about something. You acquire all this knowledge that you never can use again. But
it was the same with the Da Vinci Code, I suppose.
It was.
Because that was a very involved process.
It was. If you want to know how to find a paperback and pulp it and make it into another book, I know about that. So likewise with rope, I know where to get it from. It's really interesting to go and meet fishermen, and ask them for old rope. Strangely, they're very willing to give it to you because it's not recyclable. A lot of it is made of nylon these days. Sometimes it isn't, not nylon, but like the big thick rope that's used to moor cruise ships and stuff is made of like things like Kevlar, like what they make their body armor out of, and motorcycle jackets. It's like the strongest fabric that there is. So you really can't put that in the recycling. Hence, they're very willing for you to turn up with a van and come and get it. But then there's also the natural rope as well, which has a aroma of jute. It has a sort of aroma of the scout hut about it. One particular fisherman was waxing lyrical to us about the fragrance of the rope. He was like, "Smell that, it's beautiful, isn't it?" And we're like, "Yeah, it's nice, it's really nice." Once we cleaned the dead sea creatures off it.
Yes, so has it all been cleaned?
It has. There's some members of the team who did some hard yards there with the bleach and the scrubbing brush.
I mean, now you've learnt all about rope. Where is all the old rope in the world? I mean, there must be loads and loads of it.
There's a lot, yeah.
That isn't recycled.
I've got quite a lot of it, I have to say. Where is it? I don't know. Where is all the stuff that you can't put in the recycling? Yeah, it's a problem. The thing about the rope is, there's a good reason why it's old rope, because it's redundant. Because if they do a test on the rope, and once the tensile strength drops below a certain level, it's redundant. You can't use it anymore, because obviously the consequences of using old rope are dire. Your cruise ship will drift out to sea. That'd be no good. Or the climbing rope. Obviously that would be a disaster if you used old rope for that. Where is it? I don't have an answer to that, apart from to say a lot of it's here.
But I suppose, when people come in here and they look at this, people are going to have different reactions, aren't they? Some of them are going to think about art, some of them are going to think about the environment, some people are going to think about fishing. Is that what you like about your work? That there isn't a definitive answer of what's this about?
Yeah, the cliched statement, I say, well, it isn't a crossword puzzle to which there is one solution. It is a proposition, it's a question. That's what art is, for me at least, is that you're saying, well, how about this? What about this? What does this mean? And then the conversation that you subsequently have about it is the work in progress. It is the work changes through time as a result of that conversation. And that is, for me, the exciting thing about making a project like this anyway, is that it's very open-ended. You started it, but it won't finish. The conversation won't finish. So people are constantly projecting different meaning onto things. You guide that, obviously, with a press release that has £1 million written on it. But still, there's always something that will surprise you about that conversation, and something that I will learn about it. And that's a gift, that's a great thing.
And what about putting your politics into your work? Is that something you want to do?
I think, for me, I don't think you can escape from a political dimension to anything that you do. And as an artist, you can't make apolitical work. That's not possible. As soon as you invite other people to have a conversation about it, it becomes political. I mean, right now there are there are things that we're talking about in the art world. The art world is in a tricky place at the moment, like as in the world of high art, high finance, where there are wealthy collectors who buy work. That's in a difficult moment because of things that are happening on the other side of the Atlantic, perhaps. There's a lot of volatility, but I don't know. I've been involved in this kind of gallery for a long time, so you see lots of ups and downs. I think that politically, as I've said, I've come to realize the value of art, not just about what I do, but about the value of interacting with art, the value of making art, whoever you are, of embracing your creativity, engaging with the arts as an essential part of your health and well-being. So for me, that understanding is me demonstrating my politics. In lockdown, where we all had a lot of time to sit around and think and chat, albeit over Zoom, I started a community art project. We spend a lot of our time, my wife and I, in Devon, near to Sidmouth. And we started this project called Sidmouth School of Art, which is essentially a community art project for everybody in the town. It's a town of 14,000 people, rather different politically from where I spend most of my time, which is Brighton. But still, we started this project, which I kind of directed all my charitable giving into. The idea being that we could present workshops, present opportunities to make art, opportunities to learn about art in the town, just for people from the town, free of charge. And we were supported a little bit by the Arts Council, but they're on tough times now, so that's run out. But it's kind of nice. We're just making, community art workshops. So making collage, making greetings cards, having exhibitions. We have a billboard where we invite kind of professional artists to come and make an image for the billboard, and then do workshops with the camera club or whoever it is in the town. And I've really enjoyed doing it. I have to say, I'm just come up with ideas and come up with a bit of money, and it's my colleagues there who actually do the difficult work of putting it all together. But the reason why I really like that is because at that moment in lockdown, where you're just listening to the news and it's kind of making you really anxious. We have a lot of political discussion. You're constantly talking with people in the pub about, right-wing politics. Isn't that particular political figure so objectionable? Isn't that political point of view so objectionable? What can you do about it? You are just a person arguing in the pub after a while. So for me, making that community art project, albeit on a very small level, on a level I could manage and provide ideas for, provide some support for, it felt like that was an antidote to having that political discussion, that argument that nobody really heard or nobody valued. So it was an embodiment for me of my political beliefs in a way, in that I believe my politics are, broadly speaking, progressive. I believe in social justice, I believe in social responsibility, etc. And to make a project which was free, which was for people to engage with the arts for the benefit of their health and well-being, was a political gesture. That was me demonstrating my politics in a positive way, probably for the first time in my life, even though as a successful artist you're invited to donate to this cause and that cause, which I do. Somehow that's not so fulfilling, because you're just donating something and you don't see what happens at the end of it. So to do something kind of that I was much more involved in, that I could really see what was happening amongst a group of people whose politics were quite different to mine, that was good. That, for me, that felt like a political gesture that was positive.
Engagement.
Yes.
I mean, do you think art might once again become, that they might start coming for the artists?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they'll come for the artists, they'll come for the teachers, they'll come for basically anyone. What do you do about that? I don't know. I think that people just need to, the arts are a remedy. Art is a remedy, and people need to understand that. And we need to give it to the people who might come for you, you know. People who...
But are we back in that realm? I mean, you know, it's sort of an odd thing to say, I suppose. But if you fear right-wing figures, or if you're appalled by right-wing figures, what is it you are appalled by or fear?
What is it that I fear? Well, how long have we got? I think that essentially there's a distortion of value in our society. Essentially, it's just like, well, you know, a panacea for all social ills is if we stop small boats coming across the English Channel. That's simply not true. Our NHS will not be fixed by that alone. We know that. You know, I don't know, how do you counter misinformation and lies? It's like the arts are of value to us. It is demonstrated. It is, if you don't understand that, it's born of an unwillingness to look at the evidence. There is empirical evidence for all of these things, that spending money on social services is a good thing. Etc. It is, what do I do about it? I don't know, it's overwhelming. All I do really is just make funny drawings about it to some extent, and have my little community art project.
But that's, I mean, the power of what you do could actually become much greater, I think, over time. I mean, if you look at what's happening to the media in America, who's owning it, the way they are capitulating to the Trump administration, you know, we're moving into a world where what was mainstream media might not be able to say some of the things that it used to say. Art will still be able to say those things, because not everybody will always spot it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I used to be the political cartoonist for the New Statesman about 15 years ago. Hard as it is to believe, given that I find it very difficult to draw caricatures. I always felt at that time, I mean, I have a lot of time for that current affairs publication. I always felt that was speaking to people to an audience that already agreed with everything that they were going to say. Obviously, that wasn't going to change anything. And I think that, yeah, what can you do to speak truth to power? I feel like one needs to be so resourceful and so intelligent in order to say anything that can cut through, or to say anything that to resist that inevitable force. Other people will have much more eloquent answers.
Although your postcards and, you know, are sort of, they're in the three-word message tradition, aren't they? Which is very powerful and very cut through. Yeah,
I guess so. I mean, the way I make art it doesn't come, you know, it's really difficult to make art about something. It's like somehow the thing that the work is about gets applied to it after you've made it. So in that sense, I'm not a very good political cartoonist. I find that quite difficult. But obviously I'm really happy when my work is used to a political end that I approve of, and it often is, and that's great. It's really gratifying.
Have you got an example?
Well, I'll give you a really good example of the dangers of it, where I made a piece in 2016 which was on the Fourth Plinth in London. You may remember it. It was a giant bronze thumb that had an elongated thumb, and it was called Really Good. And it was a curious piece, I guess, because it was sort of an endorsement of everything. And a lot of things have happened since I made it, kind of politically. I started making it in 2014. So anyway, a friend of mine sent me a photograph of, she went on the Women's March, and all the Women's March eventually assembled around Really Good, the sculpture, and they all did a photo like that. And I was like, oh, that's really nice, you know, obviously. It's definitely that. I approve of the Women's March and all they stand for. But then somebody else sent me a picture a while later of, I think it was the English Defence League or whoever they were, doing exactly the same thing, you know. So it illustrates the perils of, you know, what I do. It's like you're not really, you know, deliberately that piece was a curious piece. It invited a very interesting conversation, which I really enjoyed, and I was actually quite surprised about how much I learned to it and how open-ended it was. It was really interesting. However, as a political statement, it was more than ambiguous, you know. And I think a lot of the works that I've made are a bit like that, in that they can be, I think, oh yeah, you know, they're appropriated by progressive political causes. That's great, as it should be. But then you realize sometimes they're not. They're appropriated by causes that I find abhorrent, you know. So it's tricky.
Does that make you think you should state more clearly what you approve and disapprove of?
Well, I think the value of, you know, the nature of the work is that I don't provide a commentary to it. So I can't really change that. You can't write a little disclaimer underneath saying, this is not in no way an endorsement of the English Defence League. Because that would be a bit ridiculous. It is, however, an endorsement of all women's movements.
I mean, if you're a progressive, I mean, how worried are you right now about where we're going?
I stopped watching the news when Trump got elected last November, so I'm less worried than you are. And, genuinely, I did that, and because I needed to do it for my own mental well-being, because it was just making me miserable and depressed, and just having to listen to all that nonsense. So I'm in situations now where people will tell me about world events, and I'll sort of be like, should I just be honest and say I don't know what they're talking about?
So you don't follow the news either, really? You know, online or?
Not really. I mean, I'm slightly ashamed to say it, but I have a broad understanding of what's happening, which usually is filtered through my wife. And she'll just give me a little briefing now and again as to what's going on. But, you know, but I sort of feel like that, you know, we all have to look after ourselves, you know, and to do things that are good for us, because we need to function. We've got responsibilities in this world, and if we're just miserable and angry, we can't prosecute those good intentions that we have as effectively. I'm not sure that I'm right. I suspect, I don't know. I might just have to. Maybe I should dip into it once every couple of weeks, just so I know.
I mean, I hear this increasingly from people who are saying that they're not watching the news because it's all too bad, and I can't work out whether it's because the news has changed and social media has changed and everything is more emotional, or whether we might be in Weimar Germany.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you kind of need to know what's going on to some extent.
I keep thinking of cabaret at the moment and thinking, are we all in cabaret now? You know, people who are sort of tuning out of the world.
Yeah, well, I've been thinking a lot about 1984 in recent years and all that kind of ever darker resonance. And yeah, I think the thing is that you can't, having a debate the political debate and expressing a political opinion, for me, for a large part, as I said before, doesn't really matter. It doesn't change anything. Just being angry doesn't change anything. It's only if you actually do something that's the only thing that changes anything. And the only thing that most people do that is in any way relevant a lot of the time is just to vote. And the voting system, it's like, well, okay, vote, well done. Who have you voted for? Good. But it's what else can you do? For me, it's the only way I've found that actually feels positive is in my little community art project, and that's it. That's the sum of my political. Well, the sum of, I think, the thing that I'm in control of, apart from making the art, which it's just a joy. It's just good for me anyway, and I'm going to make it regardless of if I was famous or whatever.
And why Sidmouth?
Because I lived down there at that point. We spent a lot of time down there in COVID, and I don't know. I think I could have. I mean, I'm involved in certain things in Brighton where I spend most of my time, which are great. Brighton Table Tennis Club and stuff is just a wonderful community initiative that I'm involved with in a small way, and a few other things. It's kind of fun to do it somewhere where the people who you're providing that service to do not have political views aligned with your own. I think that's kind of interesting. I mean, it has occurred to me that maybe I should have done it in Brighton, where I spend most of my time, but don't know. I've got to do it somewhere, and it's quite interesting to demonstrate your political beliefs to people that don't necessarily agree with them. That's not to say that I don't, have great affection for the people of Sidmouth, which I do, and many of them are my friends. But yeah, broadly speaking, Brighton is a funny little bubble, as you know, politically. So it's good to step out of that. It's probably healthy. It's, good for your understanding of the politics of the United Kingdom. So I think it's, probably a gift for me. It's an opportunity to learn.
And do you think you'll re-engage at all with the news? I mean, it's very funny talking to someone who says they genuinely don't watch the news, because I talk to a lot of people who say they don't watch the news, but they clearly do keep an eye on the news. If you're not really following the news, I could tell you anything, and you wouldn't necessarily...
No, I'd check it out with my wife. She'd tell me.
Your wife would tell you all the time?
Yeah.
Yes.
She'd message
me. So do you think you'll re-engage, when it comes to your next vote?
Probably, yeah. Definitely, yeah, sure. I mean, part of it is to do with the kind of Donald Trump thing, where he's his own news generator, and I'm just sort of like, that's kind of pointless engaging with that, because it's just constant nonsense all the time, and I'm like, there's no value in listening to this. It's sort of like, it's a total red herring. You're better off reading some kind of more long form interpretation of what's going on, because that news cycle is sort of annoying as much as anything else. But there's also a thing with me, I think I'm probably a bit oversensitive, and I've got to a stage in my life where I'm in a bit of emotional crisis where I'm like, I can't deal with it anymore. But it's the same with football. It's like I was watching, my wife's always like, why aren't you watching the football? And I'm like, just can't deal with it, because we're going to lose. I know we're going to lose. So I just I switched the TV off, like my team, Nottingham Forest, were playing Leeds on Sunday, and it's on the telly, and I've got the Sky Sports, but I can't watch it because it's too painful. Unless I'm there at the City Ground watching it, I can't deal with it because I've got 30,000 other people to emotionally support me. When it's just me at home alone in Brighton, I can't deal with it. So it's sort of born of the same thing, where I'm so sensitive to it, I just can't deal with the emotion, And God knows what it will be like with the next election, I ignore that as well. I always go to bed and just check my phone in the morning. But it's me. Maybe there's something wrong with me.
And artistically, I mean, we talked a little bit about how your career has developed as you've become more successful. Is this kind of work your future, or will you just carry on doing everything? A bit of drawing, a bit of sculpture, a bit of installation?
I kind of have to make drawings and painting because I love that. That's just an ongoing thing. But I think as a result of the success of that work, I have the opportunity to make this work, so it kind of feeds into it. And I have the opportunity to make more ambitious projects. I have met some really good people who work for me who help me to do these things. So I've got the opportunity and it's fun. But I don't have another idea for anything else at the moment. I kind of need to find another idea. But yeah, I'm just using the opportunity that I've got, I guess.
And if you could change the world in any way, how would you change it?
I'd make STEM into STEAM. I'd put the arts back into our core curriculum as a vital, important as the other subjects.
David Shrigley, thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.